I think moving forward, transparency is a prerequisite for there to be a peaceful transition into any kind of future. If you're talking about CBDCs or the financial system, or you're talking about whatever system they were trying to create, smart cities or whatever it is, they're gonna have to be completely transparent.
Well, I think in my opinion, they made a big mistake with the whole COVID thing.
Yeah, I do too.
Because what they did was they really opened our eyes.
Yeah, they did.
To what they were trying to accomplish, and they, in my opinion, they failed at it. I think they got some people, but for the most part, people like ourselves, I don't know about you, but one thing that I immediately did when that happened was I've never read so much in my life. I was like, all right, something is off here. Something is not right. You know, shutting down our businesses, telling us not to go in the sun, locking us up, and don't do this, don't do that. Something's weird. You know, wear a mask, all this stuff. I was like, something's up. So I literally just, you can ask my wife. I mean, I had a glass of wine and the computer, and I was just reading literature after literature. You know, forget the daggone name of the website.
NIH, something like
the
that.
NIH, the CDC website, and what's fascinating to me is everything they were telling us that we weren't supposed to do. All of it was right in front of our faces. If you're willing to read a 178-page, you know, article or research paper, what have you, and it was all counter, like it was the opposite of what they were saying.
Contradiction,
It was a contradiction.
Yeah,
I was like, wait a minute, you have 70 years of research on this, like vitamin C. Like all of a sudden, they didn't want us to do high dose vitamin C.
Right.
Like that's bad. Like all of a sudden, they didn't want us to take vitamin D. That was bad. But yet there's research that shows how great it is and how good it is for you. It was very bizarre, very bizarre. And it's like, okay, then you have to go down these rabbit holes of why.
Yeah.
Like, why are they doing this? And I think 4 years, almost 5 years later, we're at a point now where if you really have your own thought, your own critical thinking, you have a family to protect, you have a business to protect, you have people that rely on you. If you're in any kind of leadership role, it is your duty to do research, because, you know, I was in a position where I had 2,000 something members looking at me like, what are we doing now? What do we, you know?
Right.
And I didn't want to be somebody giving out information that I didn't feel strongly about.
I think the problem, at least in my experience, is when you say that I disagree with this, it infers that you're that. Like, let's say I disagree with, you know, whatever position on gender affirming surgery. It doesn't mean that I don't think that people have a right to determine their life once they're 18. Absolutely. Right. Or let's say if I'm right leaning on a subject and people are like on the left, and you know, I say, well, you know, I don't like Joe Biden's policies or whatever, and they say, oh, you must be a Trumper, like you must be a right-wing lunatic, like de facto.
Well, I think what's happened is I truly believe that more people are similar than different.
Yeah, we're in the middle.
Okay, there's so many people that are more right down the middle than we realize. But what's happened is it's gotten so far left and so far right that it's like you almost have to pick a side.
Right.
Because if you don't, then you're put in a side anyways. Instead of actually having conversation and finding the similarities in our differences, like coming to common ground. Because I truly believe if we had the conversations that we need to have, we'll find common ground. Yeah. And you can find common ground in almost anything.
Health and fitness.
Right.
Right. Like who's going to disagree? Like when you look at the evidence that the sun is bad for you.
Exactly.
You know, unless you're under some kind of mind control
argument there.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all under it.
Right.
You know, we got to deal with it. It's good for you. I completely agree. I think that's where, if you can take the emotional charge and not be kind of married to your ideas and really just practice the Buddhist way of detachment and just listen and then not make assumptions about what the other
person's... We certainly need more listening in this. Yeah. Most people listen to talk instead of listening to listen, like active listen to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I think, I mean, what I would like to see is an opportunity to actually hear a conversation of what it looks like to not agree, but then to find a place that you find a happy place to be, if that makes sense. So like me and you could disagree on whether the bench press or the incline bench is better for your chest, right? Development of your chest. And then we give our points, and then we come to a place where like, oh, I see where you're coming from, and you say, I see where you're coming from, and then that's it. We don't even have to agree.
Right.
I could still say that bench press is the best thing. You could still say incline is. But at least I get to hear your point. I think now we've gotten to a place where nobody even wants to listen to the other person's perspective. And that's not a good place to be.
No.
Because there is different perspectives. There is different ways to think, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But if we just are fighting each other all the time, we're never going to get there.
And the thing I hope that everyone realizes is that for you to be Manning, for you to be authentically yourself, depending on who you're talking to, you have to risk offending them by thinking for yourself. Like, you might, just by virtue of being you, might say something to someone that may hurt their feelings. And that's not your intention.
Right.
That's just how they receive the information through the filter that is the way they think about themselves and life. And it's like, that was very important for me to understand that, like, there's a toxic kind of thing. I mean, people can say, Andrew Tate's toxic because he's teaching people to, just talk a lot of shit. He's saying some outlandish shit.
Right.
And he's, let's be real. The guy's he's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
He's using the algorithm. He's using outrage. People on the right or the left or wherever they are on the spectrum, they're going to, repost his message because he says ridiculous stuff.
Right.
And it's controversial. And so he's using that. But, in the spectrum of that, like if we were to sit down and say, look, I'm going to be authentically myself, and for you to understand where I'm coming from, I have to risk offending you by being me.
Right.
And that's your choice to be offended by what I'm saying, or if you'd like to discuss it more, like, why do I think that way? Why have I had that position? Because typically, Manning, at this stage of the game, we've thought about a lot of our opinions. Like, we've revised the way we thought about everything.
Right.
Right. So it's not this thing of like, it's a narrative that's just an ideological kind of talking point that we're just saying over and over again. Like, I was there. I was in college. I would go to the news. I'd be like, yeah, Iraq's bad because, well, I don't care if they don't have weapons of mass destruction. We should bomb them anyway.
Right,
It's like, I was there, right? But then you learn, and you learn what drives who controls the levers of information, and you go, more than likely, this is about money and who stands the most to gain. And so as a businessman, who stands the most to gain. And then you realize, well, if we're about having a conversation, we can both gain in this conversation. But if the transparency is there, the honesty is there, and I have to risk offending you by telling you what I really think, and if you really want to understand how I think, and maybe how you can add this to the way you think, and I can add what you think,
right,
then we could come together. And this could be like an amazing opportunity.
Yep.
Like, there's so much energy to be unlocked, I think polarization's good. I mean, the Earth has a pole, North Pole, South Pole.
No, exactly.
You need both polarities on your battery.
Conflict is good.
It is good.
Like one of our required readings for my business is The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, and it talks about how conflict is good for business.
Yes.
Because if you're sitting around at the water cooler every day and you're having these little side discussions and you're not actually talking about what's upsetting you and things like that, and you're never gonna get it. You hear that also too with like marriages and stuff. People that never fight, and then in 10 years then they get a divorce.
Yes.
And it's because they never actually said what they truly needed to say in those moments. Like, you need to argue, again, healthy,
right?
Not like, being abusive or aggressive or anything, but you need to have these conversations that lead to growth. And the only way to grow is to get uncomfortable. And that's it. I think people avoid confrontation because of how uncomfortable they feel. Yeah. But on the other side of discomfort is growth. And that's in working out.
That's in everything.
That's in everything, right?
That's a beautiful way to look at life.